Bristol Selectboard meeting to order on Monday, November 7th, 2022. Review agenda for addition, removal, or adjustment of any items. Val.
Nothing here.
Okay. Item 2, overview of Zoom meeting operation and procedures. Rules for participation. Please mute your microphones if you're on Zoom and be recognized by myself, Chair, if you wish to speak. Item 2, public forum. Opportunity for public to speak on any item that is not on tonight's agenda. Okay, I'd like to remind Bristol voters that tomorrow is election day. You can vote in person from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. upstairs in Holly Hall. And I'd also like to remind everyone to please bring your ballots that you received in the mail. Do not throw them away. They are the real thing. They're not sample ballots. So if you're voting in person tomorrow, please bring them in. And you will also receive local ballots for Bristol at your polling place at Holly Hall. We have 3 ballots for Bristol. 2 are sort of combined. 1 is the water line replacement that we're talking about tonight for Pine Street. And the other 2 items on the ballot are for the school district. One is the formation of a new union school district with Virgins and Bristol and other towns. And then the second item for that, related to that, is the election of members to the new school district union board. So that'll be on our local ballots tomorrow. And again, please bring in your ballots, and voting is 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Did I miss anything, Sharon? I think I covered everything.
No, I think you got everything.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I posted that on Front Porch Forum today, posted, which is nice. So we'll see what the turnout is tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Item 3 on our agenda, which is the main item for this evening, is the Pine Street water line replacement bond vote. It's a public information meeting about that. And I will say that the bond vote is, a vote is required to proceed with a bond vote by all voters in the town. And the payment of the bond vote will be paid by water district users only. It's not a town-wide payment, but permission is required in order to enable us to do a bond vote for this particular project, but the payment of it will be by the water district users, which essentially is the former village, essentially is the water district. All right, Val, Steve, Jill, take it away.
Right. Well, you did a pretty good job of introducing things. I don't have anything to add, so I will turn it over to Town Engineer Steve Palmer, who developed a presentation to help explain why we're meeting tonight and what voters are voting on tomorrow and why it's important. Take it away, Steve.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Hey, don't forget to get your lottery tickets either. That's an important announcement. Don't forget about that. Valerie, can you pull up the presentation?
I am working on that.
I know all the select board, and Valerie, you all know Jill as well. Just want to introduce Jill. She's going to speak tonight too from BTUMS. And for those folks who aren't familiar with Jill, Jill is your water system operator and wastewater system operator for that matter. You say hi, Jill.
Hi, Jill.
Can folks see the presentation on the screen?
We also have Cyrus is also the other operator. We have 2 certified operators in the town of Bristol. Kind of exciting.
All right. Town of Bristol, Pine Street water line replacement. Okay, so I got involved with this project a couple of years ago. I used to work for a company called Green Mountain Engineering. And Green Mountain did, if you can jump to the next slide, that would be great. Let's go to everybody's been introduced. Let's go to the next one. Thank you. So Green Mountain did a preliminary engineering study, which is essentially a pretty in-depth study of your entire distribution system. Okay, so the town of Bristol has it's a little over 10 miles of water distribution main, if you want to think about it that way. It's the majority of the system is pretty old. The majority of it was installed in 1905. There's obviously some sections that were installed much more recently than that, but the great majority of it is pretty doggone old, as you'll see as we move along. Next slide. Oh yeah, by the way, in this slide right here, sorry, in that slide right there, you can see here's the project location. Really, it's really between North Street and the town garage. Okay, so it runs roughly about 2,600 feet. Okay, next slide, please. We kind of went through this. GME did the preliminary engineering report. It was a pretty in-depth report. And it's one of those things that you definitely want to read at night just before you're going to bed. But there's a lot of good information in there. It didn't just cover Pine Street. I mean, this covered your entire distribution system. It was really a plan for you folks as a town on what needed to be done in terms of infrastructure maintenance and how you're going to get there. So it's for folks that are interested in that kind of stuff, it really is a good thing to understand. So really the basic findings out of this, as we were talking about, you've got a little over 10 miles of line here. They recommended, Green Mountain Engineering recommended that you replace about 33,000 lineal feet. The great majority of that, 95% of that replacement, is stuff that was put in 1905. There were a couple of small pieces that were added to that were a little bit newer, but they were primarily for upsizing. In other words, the existing line is too small, and they were trying to, in the hydraulic analysis, so they did a computer model of this as well, right, to try to make sure we could achieve the desired fire flows everywhere. So there were a couple of small sections of line that they suggested based on the computer modeling to upsize from what's there today. The lines that we're talking about replacing in the next, let's say, 7 or 8 or 10 years are all 1905 lines. That really was the priority. These are way beyond their useful life. I mean, typically you're talking 60 to 80 years for this type of pipe. This is all on-line cast iron. In today's world, if somebody was going to use cast iron, they would line the inside of that pipe with concrete, and that concrete helps prevent a lot of buildup. And Jill's going to go through a little bit of that and what it looks like and what that does to a pipe when you don't have a lined pipe today. But you guys do not. Testing and modeling confirm the current distribution system. Yep, sorry. All right, we're on to the next one. Existing water leakage rates. Oh yeah, this is a really important point. You got to realize in 1905 when they put this in, this was state of the art. This was put in with we call them bell joints. So it's you've all seen it. One pipe slips inside the other. You've got a bell end on the pipe, and the other one's just a little bit larger, and the other one slips inside. Well, back then, they didn't have great materials like we have today with rubber gaskets and things that last hundreds of years. They would pack in basically straw, right? They would call it oakum. They put the two pipes together and they would pack straw in that annular space, and then they would pour lead in between to seal it. And that's essentially the sealer. And you can imagine over the course of, we're getting up toward 120 years now. A lot of those joints have probably cracked and moved, and you're seeing significant leakage within your system. Jill can talk a little more about the leakage rates, but I think the last time we looked at this, we were at about 55% leakage rate. So that basically means that's the difference between what you bill your users and what your master meter today says that went through your system. Does everybody understand that? So it's quite extensive. Normally, according to the American Water Works Association, the typical municipal system would be about 16% leakage rate. So you guys are pretty high, but that would be expected with this old of a system. Okay, so here's some of the issues. I mean, and really, there's no alternative when piping gets that old. It's not at a point where you can reline it or do other things. There's no alternative really to replacement. Obviously, as this pipe gets older, if it does not get replaced, you're going to see, decreased reliability. You're going to have a lot more emergency water breaks. And that leakage rate is going to continue to increase over time. Your emergency repair costs are going to go up. Your pavement quality, obviously, everywhere, as you continue to pothole the streets and repair these, is going to go down. And obviously, that gets much more expensive. You guys see that every day. So one of the big things from Jill's standpoint too is the ability to isolate sections of the system when there are emergencies. So, you know, a lot of these valves are 120 years old as well. Do they seal? Can you shut them off? Can you isolate a section that needs to be repaired? Or are you in a position where you need to shut down, you know, half the town in order to do that? So that's where we're getting an increased potential for catastrophic failures. There's increased risk of distribution system contamination, increased annual operating costs, including electricity for pumps, chlorine, treatment system replacement parts, right? Everything's working a lot harder than it needs to. Okay, next slide. Okay, Pine Street. So really, instead of going through each one of those, I mean, the bottom line is the project as proposed will be bid over the winter and constructed in the summer of 23, by the way. Preliminary engineering report. So here's a page out of Green Mountain Engineering's report. You can see all of the segments that they recommended replacing. The Pine Street, Valerie's circling Pine Street. So there's those three segments of Pine Street are really what we're proposing today. It's about 2,600 feet of line. Yeah, we kind of went through that already. Next slide, please. Okay, Jill, are you ready?
I am ready. So what you are looking at is a person that's going to have a heart attack. Just kidding. That is what the inside of a person's veins would look like and arteries would look like if they were getting close to not having nearly enough blood flow, not enough oxygen, and they're going to have a heart attack. This is called tuberculation, and this is what is in the inside of these cast iron water mains. So it's years and years and years and years and years and years of mineral buildup. So now instead of having that whole 4 inches or 6 on all these 1905s, I think they're pretty much just 4 and 6 inch lines. We have maybe, I don't know, 2.5 inches, 3 inches in some spots, kind of a star-shaped pattern for the water to go through. So we don't have nearly the water flow that we would have. So it starts constricting to be able to have the quantity of water going where you want that quantity to go for fire flows. And also you can imagine that valves that are seated into these water lines, they're sitting right in line, are going to fill up with the same material and not be able to go up and down anymore. So they're up and they're open, but when it's time to close them, you can't get a valve to see its way down when the circle is no longer open. So that is what we're dealing with, is, like Steve was saying, more than half of the system like this. I'm kind of excited to hear that it's 2,600 feet out of 33,000, because to me it's like, ooh, we're like 8 or 9%. So that's kind of exciting. This is an existing, we call them a customer service, but a street service. Actually, this is the town side because that's the corporation. Yep, that is the town side. That's why they're calling it a street service line. So that's the cast iron water main, actually, right on Pine Street. And that is what it looks like when the water decides it's going to bust right through the service line just after the corporation. That leak right there, that size hole will give you anywhere from like a 3 to a 5 gallon a minute leak. Imagine if there's 100 of those in town. Take that times 1,440 minutes in a day, and that is why we are losing half the water that we're making, is that, the joints, etc.
So Jill, that's might be a good lead in to talk about the service lines and the fact that we're at least going up to the curb stops with the replacement.
That's awesome. Yeah. So under the road, we're at least going to the curbs. As far as what we call the customer side, leaving the curb, I believe that's still up to the individual customers. The nice thing is that while they're down there digging, at least the customers can see what they have. And right. I can tell you, as the water operator, Cyrus and I are going to be paying attention to what we see and logging it down.
And so what that means to the average homeowner is basically what the town's going to replace is from that main water line under the street out to the edge of right of way and the side of their yard, if you will.
Yeah. Perfect. And that's just what it looks like. We just actually are in the midst of replacing a customer service line today and tomorrow. And that is exactly what her service line looks like on West Pleasant Street. So that's what happens. Those old iron service lines, they just, they fill up with minerals and they eventually just completely fall apart. That's a really pretty picture of there, the cast iron pipe and where the joints come together. So the inside doesn't look too different than the outside.
And this is a new water line that's being put into that old pipe.
Yep, because that was leaking pretty bad. That was busting up out of Pine Street on a Saturday when everybody was trying to bring their garbage down to the town garage.
No.
Yep.
Okay, and I wasn't trying to show everyone every detail of the design drawings, just that the design drawings are done and they're here and they're available for folks. So if you want to see them, please, contact Valerie and we can get those in your hands if you're concerned about what's going on maybe in front of your house or your property. We should have all of that information for you. Okay. Yep, here's some more of the design drawings. Yeah, there you go. You can see some good details in there. So that's a good point. So what Jill was pointing out was the replacement of the, you can see right here, you're almost there, Valerie, right in the middle. You see where it says 700? Yep. See, there's a small line to your right. Keep going to your right a little bit, right there. Yep, that's what we're going to replace, the water line, the water main, plus that service line heading to each house. Okay. As I understand it, Jill, maybe you can clarify this, but the homeowner owns from the curb stop, which is a valve, right just about where you're at the edge of the property line to their house. Is that correct in Bristol?
Yep. So the town owns the curb. They own the curb box. They own the section that goes from the water main to that curb box. As that water line is leaving that curb valve, that water line belongs to the customer. And that goes from that as it's exiting the curb into their home. And then there's also a meter set, which is not part of this project, but.
When you refer to the term curb, I think another term is curb stop. Is that right?
Yep, it's a curb stop valve. Some people call it the customer shut off. So there's lots of ways to describe it, but it is definitely the shut off between the town section and the customer section. And it's like if somebody's valve inside of their house failed, that is the curb that you'd want to shut off so their house would not flood.
Right. Or you need to replace a meter or do any type of plumbing work where you didn't want that water line to be live.
Exactly. Most plumbers call us before they do work inside of somebody's home because they don't want to count on that first valve coming into the house not failing. So they make sure that that curb functions and shuts the water off before they break open any water lines inside of the house.
Okay.
And here's a view of the water lines going under the road to the other side of the street.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah, so the goal really was to replace everything within the right of way, okay, to the extent possible. So you folks in the future can feel comfortable when you pave a road or do whatever, you're very low likelihood that you're ever going to have to go back and dig that up. Okay, next. It's just a little more, it's kind of the same thing, but like I said, folks can go in and Valerie will have all of this stuff for you if you need it. Okay, next.
Steve, with going across the road to the, whether the water line is on the one side or the other, houses are on both sides, so you got to go under the road for water lines and the curb stops on the opposite side for that house.
Correct.
They're going to be protection for that water line. Frost in the main road probably will go a little deeper because no snow coverage. Is there going to be protection for that of some kind or go deeper?
Minimum, everything will be placed a minimum of 6 feet deep. There are a couple of areas because of the design of the future stormwater line that we were a little bit shallower than that. And yes, we will insulate. I think there were some sections that were right around 5 feet. And we propose to insulate those wherever we don't have at least 6 feet of cover.
And that's a good point. On these design plans, you can see the elevations
That's right.
of the line. So this shows the elevation of the line.
Darla posed a question. She says, if a homeowner wants to replace their line to their home, can it be done during this project when things are open? If not, how would they make arrangements to do that?
Excellent question.
Good question, Darla.
That's a good Jill question.
So here's how we go about that. We get requests from customers very often that they've kind of gotten to the point where they believe it's time to replace their customer service line. We tell them the best thing they could do is go out and get bids from the local contractors or a contractor of their choice or a particular person, and that we can also bid that if they'd like us to. But it's whatever works for that person because they own it, and it's whatever they're comfortable with.
One important comment to make is that any work in the right of way requires approval from the town, the public works foreman, and maybe the select board, depending on the type of work.
Yeah, and like I said before, our goal with this project is to make sure that we get those curb stops pretty darn close to the edge of right of way, which is the edge of the property line of the individual. So you shouldn't have much work that the individual has to do inside of the right of way, at least as far as replacing their water line. Just some details. There was a question earlier about the insulation. There's an insulation detail right there.
Steve or Jill, as a board, I would hope that we would strongly encourage the homeowners who've got the old galvanized lines. I'm one of those homeowners on Pine Street that does have a copper line. I didn't buy that house 38 years ago until they replaced it with a copper line. But I think there's 30 plus houses or water connections on Pine Street. And if we had 28 or 30 of those that were still old galvanized and were potentially leakers, using your math, Jill, that's about 1.5 million gallons a year. I would encourage this board strongly to encourage the homeowner. We're going by, you might tell have it all the way to your cellar, because they're not, if it's leaking from the curb stop to their cellar, they're still not paying for it till it gets to the meter. And it's still a payment that the town's going to pump water that we're not getting. And to me, I would encourage and try to work with the homeowners on a payment plan. While we're going by, we'd like to replace it all with copper, all the way to your meter in your house, in your basement. I would encourage the board, once we get closer, to encourage the board to strongly encourage homeowners to do that. And I was just using.
It would be pretty great. It would be great to get the oldest sections of the town water lines replaced from distribution all the way through individual service lines, all the way to the houses. So yeah, if there's a way to communicate that, and if the board decides that they want to kind of provide a cushion in stating that they will work out payment plans, then I think you'll probably have more buy-in from a larger percentage of people that can't necessarily put a contractor's bill in any given week or month. They might need a couple months to pay for it. They might need a year.
Good point.
The payments that the customer would be making would not be to the town, but to the contractors, right?
Correct.
That's how you do it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that sounds like a loan program then.
And I also, in full disclosure, there may be some customer service line replacement money coming out under the SRF program in future years, if it is a galvanized line or a lead line. So it's something that the state is playing with at the moment. I've got a class on Thursday to hear the director of one of the that particular program speak to what that program is going to look like. So it's still, there's nothing more expensive than getting somebody there. So half the cost is getting a contractor there. The other half is actually doing the project.
And materials. Yeah.
Yeah, especially this year.
Point. Okay, Valerie, I think this is yours.
Well, The anticipated loan amount is $940,000. That's an estimate. It could be less. And we anticipate that the Drinking Water State Revolving Loan Fund will forgive up to 50% of that. So based on that, and using then $470,000 as a base over 30 years, at an anticipated interest rate of 2% through the loan program, the state loan program, the annual payment would be $21,000 for the entire district. And based upon the number of customers, 637 at the moment, that would result in an average monthly rate increase of $2.75. Now, that does not take into account the different rate structures for residential and commercial, but that's a understandable baseline.
It shouldn't be any more than that. It could actually be less based on the bigger users.
Did you hear that, you guys?
Oh,
Speaker?
yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Speaker.
So Peeker is tuned in?
Yes, I got him on cell. I texted him and then he said, call in. So.
He can't keep away.
That's great.
Okay. All right, I think that's our questions slide. I'm sure we can say, there we go. That's when we still had a few leaves left.
Any questions from the public or from board members or anyone else tuned in this evening?
Pretty well. I've seen Jill and Cyrus there more than once as I travel down that street. There's a problem child there for a number of times. And that water line does run in that eastbound lane headed towards North Street. Will the new water line go in the the west, I guess the southbound or westbound lane?
Actually, if we can back up in slides a little bit, Valerie.
So everybody will stay on water till the new one's in?
Yes. Everyone will, and the interruptions for folks will be minor when it happens, right? Each one will get transferred individually, but if you can back up in slides to number, let's start at maybe 15. Yeah, right there. Oops, sorry, 13. There you go. Okay. You know, we don't show the center line of road here, but you can see, if you can zoom in a little bit, Valerie, please. Yeah, that's a little clearer. You can see, you know, the road is in gray, the street
Okay,
today.
yeah.
So more or less, we're staying more or less in the center of the road. Not exactly, but that's the goal. And we were trying to stay off from the existing water line to some degree. And that, you know, it's 120 years old. So that's the type of stuff, if you can breathe on it, you usually have problems. So
And this dotted line here, dotted dash line is the existing line.
So we were also, you know, the other conflict that we had was a stormwater line, and you can see in dashed, you can see the future stormwater line. So we needed a minimum of 10-foot separation there. So we were kind of balancing a couple of things as we determined where to put that water line.
So Steve, when all is said and done, is the old water line get taken out?
No, it gets abandoned in place.
Oh, so you just leave it in there?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, it would cost a fortune to pull that line out.
probably compacting that new water line will probably have more leaks in the existing one.
I'm hoping that any major breaks hold off until we get done.
He's not wrong. All they did was pave like a tiny little patch and it caused a water leak. It was just from the paver rolling and
Right.
rolling on this. Eric was doing the best thing and just paving this horrible spot on the road, and the following day.
Those old joints are pretty brittle.
Yeah,
So
happened. I know. We're just not gonna whisper at it or anything.
yeah, no, and Jill and I will work on trying to make sure that we've got some pretty good isolation valves on both ends of the street before we start. So
You mentioned stormwater. Is that this dash line here?
yes.
And that is not part of the plan. It was originally hoped that we could integrate stormwater into this plan, but time was not on our side in order to move the water plan, the water line plan forward and to get the funding in place.
So,
We also talked,
But
we
may
talked about
still
it,
be able to do them both at the same time.
did
right,
you hear,
exactly.
Speaker? Yeah, I was just gonna ask the same thing. Will we be able to do them both at the same time though? Possibly.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
the last meeting we talked about having it, we talked about the potential of combining the projects, but in the end, I think we decided it would be best to have them separate, but they might be able to happen at the same time, but as separate, completely unique projects.
Well, they would have to be, well, kind of have to be because the stormwater would be paid by the town, not by the water district.
Right. I mean, that was one of the reasons to keep them separate, but it wouldn't necessarily mean that we'd have this disruption putting in the water line and then 5 years later have a major disruption putting in the stormwater. We try to combine them as best we could, if the potential was there.
Steve, I don't have the figure.
If the same contractor got them both, they'd probably do it all at the same time. And it's just going to be a matter of timing if we can get the financing and everything in place in time to do it with the water line.
Yeah.
That's a good segue, Peter, for the question of financing. I don't have the figure in front of me, but Steve, can you tell us what the estimate was at the time for the stormwater project?
My recollection is it was just under 600,000.
And at the moment, we don't have funding in place for that.
Correct, to my knowledge.
Right.
I could pull that up, Valerie. I'm just off the top of my head. I think that's roughly where we were.
And even if that's not the most accurate number, it's in that range.
Right.
I'm in the process still of scouring potential funding sources. But the challenge there is even if I find one that fits, the timing might not work.
Yeah, and I have on my agenda this week to get a hold of your road foreman. I've had a couple things I had to get out today, and we're going to meet and see if we can find some ways in certain sections of that street to maybe do some other things that might be less expensive.
Yeah, that would be good.
Any other questions from tonight's viewers? Jill, what was the percentage of this compared to the entire town water system? You said you mentioned it previously. You were quite happy with this amount.
Well, he said we needed to replace what, 38,000?
33,000, I think.
33,000, and you said this was 2,600.
Right.
Oops, I did that backward.
8%,
8 or 9%.
8 or 9%.
Yeah, like woo, almost, like between 8 and 9. It's like, yeah, that's almost 10%. Sweet.
And Pine Street is the longest of the streets, so perhaps with our next venture, we can do 2 or 3 streets at a time in terms of a funding package.
And Steve, we don't need to flip all the way back to the chart, but we had Liberty Street there, within the top 5. And I remember I was out of high school and I haven't been out that long.
Yes, you have.
Yes, I have. That street was done. That street was done back in the late 70s, early 80s. And I wonder there, I guess that's my question. I wonder what happened there.
Valerie, can you flip back to that?
I will. And just so that I don't make people seasick, I'll flip up and then turn it back on.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take a look at what the age is in there.
I'm gonna say 78 to 80. That's my guess.
It's interesting. I wonder if, okay, where are we? Liberty. 83.
83, don't see
What we're
it.
talking about?
Yeah.
So if you go, can you scroll to the right? I don't know if we can see that or not. Way to the right-hand side, there should be a rationale for the recommendation. Okay, so,
This one.
yeah, so it says over on the right-hand side, hydraulic, and I think it's for that street. I can't see the other side at the same time, but I think it says hydraulic analysis recommends upsizing that pipe. And like I said, you know, the last time we had this meeting, really, it's up to you folks what the priority of this is. The important part was getting this in, all of these streets named in the preliminary engineering report. It gives you the ability, you have the ability to shift this around any way you think the priority should go. So if you say, hey, you know, it's great that Liberty Street needs a larger water line in order to, you know, meet its fire flows, but you know, one of these other streets, Pleasant Street, for instance, might be much more important because, you know, it's a 1905 line and you're probably getting a heck of a lot of water loss out of that. So, I mean, those are all discussions I think you guys are probably going to have as you move forward with this list.
Well, why I asked that, Steve, 1983, the quality of the pipe may be there, but the hydraulic analysis, it wasn't giving them out of fire flow. But with
Right.
increasing from a 6 to an 8 on Pine, and we just did West Street 2 or 3 years ago, the big
Right.
dig down through there, will that, could we do an analysis before we decide to do that street? Because it could increase the hydraulic now, because we've increased 8-inch on both sides, either end of that Liberty Street. Would that?
Yeah, I mean, somebody could go back and rerun the analysis with that in there, but I'd have to go back and look at GME's. I didn't personally do the hydraulic analysis. I'd have to go back and look at that, and you know, obviously somebody ran that analysis with whatever the line is today, 6-inch, I'm assuming. And
That line's an 8-inch.
8-inch.
Baker says that line's an 8-inch, and I
it's an
believe it
8-inch
is.
on Liberty.
today,
Yep.
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, so I don't know, you know, I'd have to find out. I'd have to go back and look at their report and find out
Okay.
what was behind all of that.
I'm just
I
saying.
mean, my advice to folks, and you know, everybody's gonna have a different opinion. You can ask 10 people and you get 10 opinions, but my advice would be to go after the 1905 water lines first. That's where you're gonna get the most bang for your buck.
Going down that road, yeah.
Yeah. And I think some of the, and sorry, I don't mean to keep, you know, harping on this, but I think some of the reasons that the priorities ended up where they ended up, you know, we had talked a little bit to the town at the time, or GME did at the time, about what the paving priorities were going to be. And I think they were trying to time some of those streets with plans for paving for the next 5 years or so. So does that ring a bell, Valerie? Is that true?
It does ring a bell,
Mhm.
right? There were other 1983 streets in here and 1984.
Yeah, there's a whole
Yeah.
lot more.
And I'm pretty sure you will find most of those that there was a hydraulic analysis recommended upsizing those. There wasn't that many, to be honest. Most of the streets, as you'll see that list, are 1905 water line. And that was the real issue.
Mhm.
And does everybody understand this isn't all the water lines in the town? This is just the ones that are recommended for replacement. We have more than this.
Good point.
Just so that people know, like, this is not all of them, there's more. And so this is just the ones that are either 1905 or hydraulically recommended for replacement. The full asset management plan has many more rows than this because there's more water lines than this.
Okay, that's actually good to know, because when you look at this, you're like, are all of our water lines needing replaced? So that's good. That's positive to hear. I knew we had newer water lines, but
Yeah.
And I thought, Jill, the Main Street line is 210s going up through there. And I thought those were not 1905s, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Where's
so it's just, if you look all the way, the second column down says the street name, and then it says from intersection to intersection. So they're talking about Main Street from North Street to Prince Lane. That's where it's a 1905 10-inch cast iron with stubs into the basements of the buildings, by the way. Not valves, stubs with caps on them. Main Street from Prince Lane to Mountain Street is a 10-inch cast iron. So you're noticing that all this 1905 pipe, that's your cast iron. When you start seeing DI in your material, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns over after inches is your material, your ductile iron is your newer stuff. That's coated. Your cast iron, your CI, that's your really old stuff. You can just kind of tell from the material, from the size, etc. Obviously from all the other details, but yeah, this is not all your water lines. You have more and newer ones too.
We have a question in the chat from Brett LaRose. What is the width of the pavement on Pine Street today? And is there an opportunity here to increase the width of the pavement? I asked the question thinking about the safe pedestrian and cycling initiatives that are in the works. If this has already been explored and discussed, then please disregard. Thank you, Brett. I don't think we have talked about this in terms of this project, right? I mean, I think the last time we spoke, we talked about sort of it's a fairly minimal, well, it's big, but it's minimal in terms of how much you're going into the road. But I don't think that we hadn't discussed the potential for changing the width of the road.
Right. And Alan did find out that from Maple Street to the town barn, that section of Pine Street is only a 2-rod road and not a 3-rod. So that narrows what the town has the obligation to take, so to speak.
Right. Yeah, so it's only 33 feet, right?
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, that's really a policy discussion, you know, at the board level, but I can tell you from a funding perspective, DWSRF will only pay for, you know, roughly 8 feet of pavement cut for this water line. So anything above and beyond that, so that's what they're going to pay for in terms of a repair, right? Anything above and beyond that, and especially if it was not directly related to the water line, they're not going to reimburse you for it.
Right. I think the board's prerogative with the road foreman was, that's why we've been waiting for so long, over 12 years, almost 15 years to get this water line in, because the old administrators before Valerie and before Bill was, we're going to pave that street. No, we're not paving it until we put a water line down on it. And that's why Eric finally had to do some patch, the road foreman did. But our goal was to, after the DS pays for 50% of the 8-foot wide trench, then we're going to recap it all with new pavement from the paving fund.
Right.
If I'm speaking out of turn, board, please correct me.
No, that's correct. I mean, this has been a long time coming, obviously. And I don't know if we have an opportunity to look at the road width when we're looking at the stormwater. I don't know how much of the road we're dealing with there in the pavement. Obviously, if those two projects happen at the same time, we have an opportunity to fully pave the entire length of the road. But I don't know, again, with the stormwater, if we'd have an opportunity to look at the total road width to see what we could do in terms of the cycling and pedestrian access.
Unfortunately, I feel if you make the road wider, you're going to increase speed there, and that's something we're looking to try to curb.
That's true.
Yeah,
no, you're right.
That's absolutely right, Peter.
Yeah. And looking at the speed studies that have been done by the Regional Planning Commission, at least their study that was done a couple Octobers ago, showed that speed on that street was actually below the posted speed limit. And so it is a good candidate for a road to have the speed reduced to 25, which we're attempting, we're looking at doing. And according to the regional planning study, the speed is fairly low. I mean, obviously you're going to get people who are going fast down the street, but the majority of the cars tracked were going below the speed limit. And I think because of the width of that road, it's probably that's one of the reasons why that's happening.
Steve, I have a question about pervious and impervious area. If the road is widened, obviously it's going to increase the impervious area. Does
Right.
that change the stormwater project from not needing any permits to needing permits because the pervious area is increasing?
It'll depend on how much impervious area you have.
Okay.
So the state's going to require a permit if there's anything over half an acre now. So, if you kept that below whatever, 22,000 square feet, you wouldn't need a state permit. Does Bristol have their own stormwater ordinance? Maybe a local permit is where I was going.
No, just work in the right of way application.
So the driver to that would be how much additional impervious surface you had.
And that's going to depend also, Steve, isn't it, on where we put that water? I mean, you can't just put it,
No, it doesn't matter. If you increase the size by that, that's what.
but we gotta, if we have to go to a field or a front, you know, someone's field or something that we have to pay to put it on there, that has to all be improved too, correct? That all part of the total.
We're right, but you know, if you're going to a field, that's not going to be included as impervious surface, right? So that portion of it,
Pavement.
right?
No, but that may have to
It'll
be
be
a
disturbed.
collection pond, may have to have a collection pond built.
That's right. Sediment pond. Yeah,
Sediment pond.
right.
Let's not do that. Let's keep it under that limit.
I guess the tricky question is, let's say it was 24,000 square feet, so now you're over it, and you split the project in two and do half your stormwater in 1 year and the other half the second year.
It won't matter.
Won't matter.
They would consider that one project, even though it's phased. Yeah, in that case, I would advise you find a way to keep it to 23,000, 22,000,
Okay.
and avoid the permit.
Okay, any further questions for Steve or Jill? Jill, you had a question?
Yes, have you run the numbers if we added to include all the ones that got cast iron or, you know, iron or whatever, galvanized pipe to the house? We haven't run those numbers. I thought Alan's report had something when they put the meters in, they would know what they're hooking the meter to, either cast or, you know, galvanized or copper. Do we know how many galvanized lines are on that Pine Street line? And how many copper?
The service lines?
The service lines. Do we know that?
You can kind of tell from the pavement patching how many have been replaced. So
Yeah.
I would say you've got at least 10 of them that aren't, and the rest of them probably are.
I think there's 33 users down through there, Joe? 38 maybe?
I would need to count them out again. I just would say it wouldn't be that hard to go into the basement and see what they have for material coming in. And there is a huge project coming up that the state is requiring us to identify all lead bearing and or galvanized water lines, service lines throughout the water system in the coming years. So that's coming. A full inventory is coming.
I wondered if we couldn't, through VTUMs and us and Sharon sending the water bills out, that we could at least send a letter with it and asking the homeowners, could you check your basement where the meter comes in, and, you know, do you know if it's galvanized or copper? And, you know, some of them won't know, and, you know, won't have the ability to know. I don't expect, but, you know, if we could get 80% of them to say, oh, I know what it is, it's this, we kind of have a good, in town, we'd know how many might qualify for this state grant later on.
Yeah,
That's
like
a whole
I said,
different.
there's a pretty big effort that the state is requiring that's going to happen to do that. And as far as like Pine Street before the project, if it were to be constructed next year, there could be certainly an effort put there to just identify them all before the project.
And certainly, Jill, I mean, as we move along and we replace each of the curb stops, you're going to have a good sense as we replace that curb stop, what's going on at that point. So we could do an inventory there, but I realize it's after the fact.
Jill, do you keep a record of the replacements that you've done? Do you have a database of that?
So yeah, I mean it's in our timesheets.
Okay.
And
But there isn't like a document that lists ones that you've replaced.
You know, it's interesting because I was looking through the asset management spreadsheet and I was seeing actually service lines. I was seeing CSs. So we could update those in there.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. And as far as like we've replaced hydrants as well, and some of the water lines have been replaced as well. So I was kind of noticing that the asset management plan needs kind of an update. We've replaced some pumps, we've replaced, yeah, we've done quite a bit over the last many years.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have a central place to be able to, at least if we could answer Jill's question with partly maybe with something like that.
Well, that service line answer is coming, and it's coming through force. And I mean, ultimately, it's important to know anyways, but it is going to come through, you know, through force, through mandate.
We love when our
All
hands
right.
are tied.
Oh, well, the good news is that I'll find out more about the funding that
Figure.
comes with it too.
You have a question, Peter?
Yeah, didn't we put something in the water ordinance that said we could require galvanized lines to be replaced?
I thought we put something that we could shut it off if we felt it was excess use of water. And that was under the leakage. And they
If
did,
we felt it was leaking, yeah.
right.
But I thought I guess maybe we didn't put something in there that we could require it to be changed. I totally agree that I think that when we're going down through there, if they're not copper, they need to be.
Yeah.
It makes sense while we're doing it to do it all. And if we have to work to do some sort of program where we pay the contractor to put them in and then it's a loan to the homeowner, I think that's probably something we should look into.
Yeah. My whole point was what Jill mentioned at first. There's 3 to 5 gallons of water a minute leaking out of one of those pipes. And if we got 28 of them down through there that are galvanized, we've tightened up the system by a lot, but we didn't get it completely tight. We're going to be above that 15%, 16% margin because we're going to have all those leaks.
And I know there's some old galvanized lines that come off there that go nowhere too, because at one point I dug up a leak and it was a 3-inch galvanized line that went nowhere that nobody had any idea of.
Yeah, and then there was one in the corner of Liberty and Pine that Cy and Jill and I dug one Sunday. Remember, Jill, 4 years ago, that we thought it headed for Plank Road and it didn't go in, went to a barn there that was now gone.
Oh, I remember somebody saying, you know, this wetlands has been here for a good 20, 30 years. It's always been wet back here. And then I don't know how wet it is back there anymore. There's no more 1 inch wide open.
Oh, that lawn now, there's no wetland back here now.
Oh my.
Well,
With the gravel, it goes right out. It goes right down. Yep. This is just one of streets that we just cannot wait. As Steve said, it ain't going to heal itself. It ain't like an old dog got hit by a car, going to crawl under the porch and get better. It just ain't going to heal itself.
All right. Any further discussion on this? Have all questions been asked and answered? And again, for people watching, so the bond vote you'll see on your ballot tomorrow is for approval to apply for this bond vote for the town. So even if you live outside of the water district, we'd love for you to vote in the affirmative for us to proceed on getting a bond vote. But then the actual payment is for water district users only.
And one reason why the full town is required to vote on it is to assure the lenders that in the remote chance that the water district for some reason is unable to meet its debt payments, that the loan has the full faith and credit of the town. But it's never happened. But it's required anyway.
Okay. Any other items for this?
I'd just like to make a note on the agenda. I should have mentioned this at the beginning, that Joel pointed out or caught the fact that on the printed agenda, the notation about upcoming select board meetings, it goes right to November 28th. It completely skips over November 14th. That's not to say there won't be a meeting. There will.
Okay. So next select board meeting is November 15th or 14th?
14th, Monday.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Steve. And thank you, Jill and Cy, for this evening's presentation. Very informative. And for folks that will miss it, this will be recorded by Neat as well as on the town's YouTube channel as well. So if people need to go back and look at details or listen to details, it's available on online.
the presentation will be posted, the PowerPoint presentation will be
Yep.
posted on the website as a PDF.
Correct. I have that. Just posted it just now, in fact. So you can go there and look at that.
Okay.
All right.
Alrighty.
Where's our agenda? Any other business? Item 4, correspondence reports, correspondence received. Anything, Val?
Nope, not for tonight.
All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to
Just,
adjourn.
Valerie, real quick, and I'll say you after the adjourn. Could you ask Anthony tomorrow, how long more, I think it's 2034, the bond, the huge water bond payment for the tower, for the water reservoir will go away? I just kind of want to know for future, not that I'm going to be around that long. I mean, on the board, but Peter will, and a few of us, so. Later on income to get some more of this 1905 pipes. You know, I remember we passed that in the mid-80s, wasn't it, Peter? That reservoir?
I believe so.
And I think it was like a 40-year bond or a 50-year bond. I think it's like 2000, early 30s, it's due, or 28.
That's depressing, 50 years.
Yeah. And it was for like $34 million, though. It was a lot of money to do that thing. That was a government thing that you couldn't have any more surface water. And the open reservoir was surface. So that's when we got out of taking water from Lincoln. We did they did a major lot of water improvements in the early 80s, I believe, if my memory's right. Right, Peter?
I think so.
Yeah.
I
So
thought it was shortly after.
your dad was on the board, I believe. Yeah. So
I might
anyway.
be able to tell you right now. Hang on.
Yeah, it's 50 years, that's 2030. If it was in the 80s, 2030s.
In my description, it doesn't tell me what the loan was for, but if it's the one I'm seeing,
We paid off the North Street down Plank Road, paid that off
Yeah.
a few years ago. And we're still paying on the one on West Street that was just done here 6 years ago.
Has it been 6 years?
What about North Street?
North Street, I think we paid that off, Beaker.
yeah, that one's paid off.
Goes from Pine Street down to, Livingston's down to the village line, or all the way out to when we thought about going around the loop back up Stony Hill when Casella thought about putting a landfill in there, and they were gonna pay for it, but then that dropped that.
Joel, I think the one you have asked about retires in 2037.
37, okay. I thought it was a 50-year bond. Yeah, so
This one says 40-year.
40
year, over $1 million.
I thought it was a lot more than that, millions of dollars. And I thought we did it. That's why I'm not real keen on going 30 years on a bond.
I think any lender limits the term of the loan to the expected life of the improvement. And I don't think it goes beyond 40 years.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Sure, and
So I'll make a
the
motion.
annual payments are roughly $55,000.
Right, yeah. That was a lot
Does
of
that sound
interest
right?
there. That was a lot of interest on that, a 40-year bond.
Yeah.
So I'll make a motion to Michelle's second, and we can wrap it up.
He'll second my
I'll
motion.
make a second.
All right, we have a motion and a second of that motion. All those in favor of adjourning,
Aye.
say aye.
Aye.
All right, there we go. Thank you very much. All right, thank you, Jill, again, and we will
Thank
see you on the 14th. And
Bye.
everyone, please remember to vote tomorrow between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m.